Welcome everybody to Understanding the New Charter of Aged Care Rights. This is brought to you today by OPAN, the Older Persons Advocacy Network. I just want a quick show of hands. Who here previously has heard of OPAN? Okay, so that's about on par with our normal numbers. We'll talk shortly about who OPAN is and why they're doing the rollout for the new Charter of Aged Care Rights. And I've just got a quick video first and foremost. Lovely. That's just a snippet, an introduction to the video that we have created as one of the resources throughout the last couple of weeks, gathering information for these particular community events and webinars. Your time is precious and your voice is also as precious, and it is here today that we ask for an interactive audience, in that we are looking for your voice in the future of aged care services. And the new Charter of Aged Care Rights gives you the conduit, or gives you the ability to use these rights as your voice in your aged care. So please chat to us today. We're really looking for that. I'd like to also acknowledge the ladies that have come from Campbelltown this morning. Thank you so much. They're each social activity group, so thank you. My name is Marie Montgomery and I'm your facilitator today, and then over the up and coming other community events and webinars. I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people today, the traditional owners of the land. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to any other elders from communities that may be joining us today. Today I've got an amazing panel here with me. To my right I have Craig Gear. He is the CEO of OPAN. Welcome.
Good morning everyone.
Maria Berry. Maria is a consumer representative, a health consumer representative, and also the founder of Communities of Respect, and a lot of respect for that. That's so important, Maria.
Good morning everyone, and Tangambalanga is in Australia. It's actually near Albury Wodonga.
It's beautiful. And then down the end, the wonderful Margaret Crothers from Muswellbrook. Oh, I did it wrong.
The other end of the state. So good morning, everyone.
Thanks for that, Mark. Now, I'm just going to ask you each, and I'll start with you, Mark. You've got the mic down there. Just a little bit about your background, and particularly why are you so passionate, I know you are, about aged care?
Okay, I'm a retired high school teacher for about 20 years, and as I said earlier, I survived, so that's a good sign. And then basically I was looking for something else to do, and I was looking at the care that had been given to my mum and dad as they aged and finally passed away, and I thought, that's a very honourable profession. Unfortunately, I don't have a nursing bone in my body, so I couldn't take on the role as a carer or anything like that, because I'd be hopeless. But I looked at and saw an ad, and actually a friend told me there's an ad for an advocate's position with what used to be called the Aged Care Rights Service. And I thought, and it involves speaking and speaking up for people. And I thought, oh, as a school teacher, I can do that, you know, I've done it for 20 years. So I applied for the job and thankfully got it, and I've been there ever since. So my passion is for quality aged care and for helping people who receive aged care to maintain that.
Lovely, thank you.
And my background is in nursing, with a preferred career working with older people within residential care and in the community. I also was a carer for both my parents. And that opened up a whole question of how you navigate our current system and all the issues. Even having a nursing background, it didn't make me immune to what was currently happening and wanting to create some change. And after my nursing career, I became involved as a health consumer representative, wanting to be an advocate and a voice for ageing communities. So that's what I do. Thank you.
So I'm a nurse as well by background. 3 nurses, 1 teacher. So my background was in emergency and then in health service management. So I actually worked in the prison system for a number of years, delivering services there. And one of the things I was really passionate about is actually looking at how you change the system and how you improve services for people that are often have challenges accessing healthcare or aged care. That sort of gave me a passion to get into consulting. And then I've been the CEO of the Older Persons Advocacy Network for about the last year, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we do.
Beautiful. Thanks for that, Craig. So today we're going to be discussing what are rights. So overall, what are rights to you, what they mean. We'll be looking at who is OPAN and why they are involved in the rollout of the new Charter of Aged Care Rights and the education in relation to that. We're going to really extrapolate and tease what is an advocate and what does advocacy mean. And it's really important that we get this correct going forward, because there is a wealth of support and empowerment that can come through advocacy. The Charter and the benefits of change, and then also the alignment between the Charter and the new aged care quality standards that are effective, lots of nods going on, effective in July the 1st as well. So it's a very busy time in aged care. The signing requirements, now that has brought up a great deal of communication and concern and lots of texts, etc. across Australia, and so we'll look at how that affects people and how it's done. Consumer responsibilities, so we have a little chat about that. And then finally the resources that we have available for you to utilise to have that conversation about what is the Charter of Aged Care Rights. So I'm going to go over, this is your gig, Craig, so this is your absolute bunny. And so what is OPAN and why are they involved in this?
So OPAN's been around since about June 2017, and OPAN saw the coming together of 9 organisations that have been delivering the government's National Aged Care Advocacy Program for about 25 years. And one of our members is Seniors Rights Service, is our New South Wales member. So we've got a member in each state and territory and 2 in the Northern Territory. And what they do is work with older people and their families, recipients of aged care or potential recipients, and they assist people to raise their voice and to deal with issues and to be self-empowered to raise those issues. So the advocate walks alongside the person and take direction from that person, but they're on your side. So it's really important that it's sort of an empowering role, a role that supports people, and it's something that I think is really valuable. The aged care system, as we talked about, could be a little bit complex, and sometimes issues happen, and it's really important to have someone on your side to give you some tips and tricks to speak up.
Absolutely, particularly when sometimes coming into care or the first time that you're utilising aged care services can be after an event which is life-changing. You're exhausted, you're frail, navigating, getting into, talking about agreements, etc. It can be huge. So we are there to empower and protect. Lovely, thank you. So next we're going to be looking at what is advocacy. Has anyone here used an advocacy service or phoned an advocate before? Okay, well there's one down the end and she's got a hotline. So Margaret, what is an advocate?
Well, as Craig said, that someone who is on your side. An advocate is not a negotiator, not a mediator. We are actually on your side. We support you as the recipient of aged care. And what that means is that we help you to speak to the aged care provider. If you have an issue or a question and that you want answered, we will assist you to do that. We're not the enforcer of aged care rules. That's the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission's job. Our job is to help you to sort out issues before they become major concerns and to work with your aged care provider. So even though we're on your side, it doesn't mean that we're going to go in and, crash heads together or anything like that. Our job is to speak to your aged care provider about your concern on your behalf, and the idea is to resolve the issues before they become major concerns. And so we see ourselves as sort of the first step before you actually make an official complaint. Our job is to try and either answer your questions or sort out your issues to an extent where both you and your aged care provider are happy with the outcome, and then you can both move on and continue with your quality care. So an advocate is on your side. Mm-hmm. We are not impartial. Okay, we're supporting you. However, we are not mediators. We're not going to, run some mediation service, but we will mediate on your, or advocate on your behalf is the right word, so that you can speak either for yourself or have us speak for you if you want to raise issues or concerns with your aged care provider about your aged care issues. I have to qualify that our advocacy service only deals with aged care issues. So if you've got banking problems, don't come to us. There are banking advocacy services. But if there's anything related to aged care, we are there to assist you. That's the most important thing to know. And you can just ring us up for a chat if you want to.
So 1800 700 600 is the national number, and that will get you through to Seniors' Rights New South Wales as well.
A little fairy has put one of our brochures in your program there. So we cover the whole of New South Wales. Our office is in Sydney, but we have regional offices as well. Yes. So it's a good number to have.
Absolutely. 1800 700 600.
Just to say nationally, what we call the service delivery organisations, the ones providing NACAP, like the advocacy program like Mark here, and we see about 11,500 people each year, and do sessions like this for about 40,000 people. Yeah. So there's lots of activity out there and helping people understand their rights, like we're doing today, and helping people to raise their voice. Because it's sometimes interesting when you get into aged care, there can be a bit of a power difference, because just not from anyone's intention or anything to lord it over anyone, but it's natural if someone's delivering services to you or giving you aged care, that can mean sometimes that you feel like they've got the power. This charter that we're talking about today, and also our advocacy services are there to kind of rebalance that, so that it's a partnership and an equal partnership.
Absolutely. So important to support, stand beside, and listen. I think that's really important, that we listen. Maria, you're the consumer advocate. What is that? What are some of the roles or concerns or issues that you've had in the past? Or
Sure. I think, volunteering for coming up 10 years now, a lot of the issues are that people are sometimes very frightened to voice out, don't feel that sense of trust or the direction of where you actually go to. I completed a community leadership program last year that I received a scholarship for, and that opened up my thinking, and I've had a lot of my rural community approach me and have now named me the aged care warrior in the rural area, the Tangambalanga tractor chaser for all the old farmers, and it's like this has come about, but it's and I guess my role is to direct people to organisations like this, to seniors' rights when they come up to me now in the supermarket and tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, I've got a story myself and I don't know what to do. And I recall back to my time with my parents, and it was a very difficult emotional time, and just thinking, I felt like I was actually swimming here and I could have actually used an advocate as well. So, yeah.
Wonderful, and a wonderful service as well. So thank you, Maria.
It's free, it's confidential, and it's independent of service providers.
Beautiful. So now we're looking at rights. It's really difficult to have, we could talk all day about what are human rights. And I guess since a bit of personal reflection coming on board and doing this, it's a daily occurrence where I feel, what is my right today? Or what right am I have now? I'm safe, I'm warm, I have warm scones, These are amazing things for us. However, not everyone shares the same rights at times throughout their life. So in regards to human rights, and we have a little area of, what do we call that up there? A description. But it's often not until your rights are infringed upon that you realise that there's something amiss. You really recently went to the Jewish Museum, didn't you?
Yes, yep. So that was a really interesting experience, and I suppose you think about what are the things in life that you really need, but what are the things that you expect. And there's people who heard the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the things that we need, air and water and
security,
shelter and food and friendship and accommodation. So they're our needs. And what do we expect? Well, we expect to be treated with dignity and those sorts of things. And having the privilege to go and see a ceremony or remembrance event at the Jewish Museum, and they had the history of human rights through the ages and where they'd come from and where the United Nations had come from. And they'd had children in there who had put up post-it notes about what to them was a human right. And they say, it's about the way I expect to be treated. It's about you respecting me. It's about me being a citizen and what my expectations can be as being a citizen. And it's only when those rights are either infringed or they're taken away from you, something like the Holocaust, that you suddenly realise how important they are and how worth the fight it is and why it's worth preserving those. So this charter then starts to do that in relation to aged care. And it starts to actually say, this is what you can expect from aged care, and this is what an aged care provider will make a commitment to give you. So, and when those things are infringed, that you've got the right to actually stand up and say, that's not good enough.
No.
You've committed to treating me with this way, with respect, with dignity, and meeting my needs, as well as my expectations.
Yeah. So the new Charter of Aged Care Rights, which is effective on the 1st of July, it's rolling in the 4 charters across all areas of aged care services. That's community service packages, home care, residential aged care. And it places the consumer, which is a departmental terminology. So we realise that there are times where consumer can be not always what you'd like to be called, but it can be resident, it can be aged care, consumer, what was the other one, client.
Resident.
Yeah.
Aged care recipient.
Recipient, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
But it places the consumer at the centre of care, and it absolutely recognises their right to be treated with respect and dignity.
From the 1st of July 2019, the Australian Government is introducing a new and simpler Charter of Aged Care Rights for anyone receiving aged care services. As a person receiving aged care, you have the same legal rights as all Australians. The Charter of Aged Care Rights add to these and are designed to help you by putting the focus on you, giving you choice and making sure you are treated with respect. This video aims to help you understand these rights and how you can exercise them. We'll go through them briefly now. However, you'll also receive a copy on paper and you can always ask for more information afterwards. Here's a quick look at all 14 of them. You have the right to safe and high-quality care and services. You have the right to be treated with dignity and respect. You have the right to have your identity, culture and diversity valued and supported. You have the right to live without abuse and neglect.
So this is the first of the first four of 14 rights within the Charter, and they very clearly stipulate and put into a very simple and easy to understand language, and it will be done in 18 languages on that, about your rights in aged care. Yeah. So let's have a little discussion about the Charter. I know I'm going to go to Marg first, if I may. Marg, what do you love about the Charter? How do you find it's going to help your advocates?
Well, basically, from an advocacy service, it's our bread and butter. It's our set of rules, and it's from which we work on a daily basis. And so if someone rings us up with a concern about any issue, we go to the Charter and look at, well, what can support this person's quest, their claim. And dignity and respect are good ones to look at. I often have people say to me, that my mum gets talked over. Everyone else is making decisions about her, and I actually had one lady say to me that they were actually in a shop, not in an aged care service, but the shopkeeper asked the daughter what coloured shoes a mum would like, and she said, I don't know, ask mum. And mum was sitting in a chair next to her. So, little things like that can become demeaning, and sometimes they're unintentional. And that's an important, because we're all in a rush, and we've all done it. I know, we take your dad to the cafe. Come on, Dad, what cake do you want? Come on, oh, you like that one, have that one. And suddenly Dad's decision-making is out of the window because I'm rushing him. And so we all just need to take a step back and look at it and say, from the older person's point of view, are these rights being met? Are we being treated with dignity? Are you having choices? Are you being listened to? Have you got the ability to have someone to speak on your behalf if you're not feeling listened to? Mm-hmm. And that's the basis of the work that we do. And so from an advocate's point of view, it's our Bible, virtually. We start with that, and then we go to guidelines and regulations and laws and things like that. But ultimately we start with the rights. And is what is being asked of us, or asked of the aged care provider, is that within my rights to have a say? And then we go from there. And that sort of alludes a little bit to what is within your rights, because remember, they're your rights, and your rights are no more important than anyone else's. So if you're saying you're living in an aged care home and saying, oh, I don't like that lady, can you get rid of her? That's not your right. So we wouldn't be supporting you in that one. But, if it's within the guidelines and within the Charter and you're respecting everyone else's rights, then, that's a good starting point for us.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. Now, within your booklets that you have in your chairs, there are the 14 rights, and it's quite clearly, what page is that on, actually? Page 1? Yeah, I thought it was. I just made sure with the printing last night.
Exactly.
Late night printing, I'm afraid. So page 1, very clearly, the 14. And they are so easy to sit down and discuss and unpack. And we will unpack them a little bit more and talk about our favourite rights. But I'm just going to put it over to you. Is anyone out there looking at those rights, or want to have a little discussion, or want to talk more about human rights, or have anything to add to our discussion here today? It's a very interactive, casual day. No, not yet? Try and choose a favourite right shortly, because we will be discussing that. Lovely. Okay, so we're now making connections, thanks guys, we're now making connections between the new Charter of Aged Care Rights and the Quality Aged Care Standards. And the Quality Aged Care Standards also are effective from the 1st of July. As I said earlier, it's a very busy time in aged care. The alignment, do you want to have a quick little discuss between the alignments of the charter and the...
Sure. So I see these are almost the person-centred, from the older person's perspective, the outward-facing stuff of what is really saying what are the service providers' view, which is the quality standards. Mm-hmm. This is the older person or the care recipient's point of view of what that is. The two link really closely together, and this, I suppose, is the 14 commandments in some ways to actually say, this is what I expect, this is what you're going to do, this is how we're going to behave. So, and the link back to the standards is really about, let's go on to the new standards.
Yeah, I'll do that. There
so
we go.
This is the graphic of the new standards. I'm going to stand up.
Again, really easy to follow. Do you want the pointer?
And it talks about that little centre, for those who can't read it, talks about consumer dignity and choice. So what's different here is that before, the standards used to be a lot about processes and policies and procedures and saying to the aged care provider, make sure you've reviewed your work health and safety policy. And that was good, but it didn't actually change the way someone experienced aged care for themselves. And so what they've done is to say, let's put the person at the centre and just be really explicit about that. And then each of these 14 do link somehow into these sorts of different things here. So about the way assessments are done, about the food and the environment you can expect, about the care. So we've got care, I'm just trying to think, care, and I can't see it quite there, but the expectation around that you'll get really good clinical and nursing care, and you'll also be socially included as well. And that kind of links to the first charter, the first right, which is about high quality care and services. I expect you to deliver to me high quality care and services. And that's, I suppose, really important to say, well, from the provider's point of view, they're saying we're going to do this. From the consumer point of view, they're saying I'm going to expect this, and we're going to come together in the middle.
Absolutely. It's really it's hand in glove, isn't it? It's interweaving of the structure of what must be. There's an environment, there's care, there's food, and quality. And then underneath that, what I think brings the beauty to all of this is the humanistic values of your rights. So you get to paint the framework of your aged care. So for me, it'd be like, I don't want to be out of bed until 10 o'clock. I want my cup of tea. My dog is at the end of my bed, and I've got the old rustly age, which probably won't exist by the time I get into aged care, hopefully. Anyway, they're the sort of things that paint the structure of how my day is going to be, even though I am utilising an aged care service. Yeah, please, Mark.
Yeah, I've had a number of aged care providers sort of express a concern about the new standards and how are we going to implement them. But I think really most aged care providers have been doing this already. And it's just a matter of adjusting your paperwork rather than your thinking, because it's in everyone's best interest if the older person is at the centre of our care, that we're meeting individual needs. Because if you've got happy clients, you've got a happy workforce, and you don't have many complaints. And so, to me, the bringing together of the consumer-directed care ethos to the standards as well as the charter, it really does just unify everything, and it just says we're all on the same page. We all want quality care, and if the quality care isn't being met, well, then there are bodies that we can talk to. But this whole concept of putting the consumer or the older person in the centre of what we're doing is really an aged care provider's and advocate's dream. If we can meet their needs, then we are achieving quality care.
Absolutely. And you're right, there are many providers and workers out there that are doing an amazing job, really unsung heroes, because we know that it's busy and we know that it can be a full-on workplace. So, doing a great job.
What I really like about this new charter is that it actually gives the opportunity for older people and providers to actually continue to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So there's been people who have sort of said to us, we're just so busy and how are we going to get this done, and we just have to get this signed and that sort of thing. And we'll talk about some ways that can be done later. But it's actually a really good opportunity to open up conversations.
Yeah.
To actually say, well, what do you expect from us? If I'm your aged care worker, what would you expect from me? What's important to you? And we sometimes lose that time to be able to do that, but also the trigger to be able to do that. And what the Charter is doing in saying, because it needs to be explained to people by the provider, is to say, let's have a chat.
Yeah,
Let's talk about your expectations. Talk about what you need, what you want.
Yeah.
Gag team. No, I just think of a very quick example. There was one aged care home out regional New South Wales that the staff were complaining about the fact that meal times were a problem because all the residents were lining up ready for lunch, or breakfast, and especially breakfast. Everyone was lined up at 9 o'clock, and the staff were trying to get showers done, and everything. It was really busy. And someone thought about, how about we don't do breakfast hours? The people can just come down when they're ready for breakfast. And it changed the whole ethos of the place. Because, Fred had come down at 6:30 because he's woken up and he was starving. But Betty was in bed till 10 o'clock and she wandered us down for a slice of toast. And they just needed one staff member in the kitchen making the breakfast as the residents came down. And it left the rest of the staff to do all the other stuff. And so by actually meeting the needs of the residents and saying, you choose, they made work easier for the staff and better for everyone. So that's a really good example, I think, of person-centred care, consumer-directed care, working for both.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks. She's a bit passionate. The conversation. I think it's time to have that conversation and really sit down and get to know everyone. We met Maud, was it the other day? Merle, sorry. Merle was amazing, 99, very independent, blind, and she had a recent fall with a fracture, and her biggest concern or complaint, even though she didn't want to bother anybody, was that she's never taken medication before, a Panadol every now and then. So 99 and not taking medications. And they kept trying to make her take all these medications. She said she was really tired trying to say, no, I don't take medications, I don't need it. And they wouldn't listen to her. So it's those voices that we need to say, hey, I don't need that medication. I have the right to say no. And it's a change of thought, isn't it? She was absolutely gorgeous. All right. Let's have a look at some of the other rights.
You have the right to be informed about your care and services in a way you understand. And you have the right to have access to information about yourself, including information about your rights, care and services. You have the right to have control over and make choices about your care, personal and social life, including where choices involve personal risk. You have the right to have control over and to make decisions about the personal aspects of your daily life, financial affairs and possessions. You have the right to your independence. You have the right to be listened to and understood. You have the right to have a person of your choice, including an aged care advocate, support you or speak on your behalf. You have the right to complain, free from reprisal, and to have your complaints dealt with fairly and promptly. You have the right to personal privacy and to have your personal information protected. And finally, you have the right to exercise your rights without it adversely affecting the way you are treated.
So quite powerful, even though they're written so simply. They are very, very powerful. So my favourite part of the webinar, or even community event, I do apologise, is talking about our favourite right. And I'm going to go to Maria because you haven't said much yet today. Come on, what is your favourite right?
I think dignity and respect, but it's a whole umbrella. I keep picking number 7 because I'm a bit of a risk rebel here. I'm very passionate and about empowering and enabling older people to make those choices, their life choices, and what they would like to experience, whether it's jumping out of a plane, whether it's heading off to the footy for the afternoon. I do realise and understand within organisations there is a duty of care and things like choking and issues like that, but I still think we can empower and enable those life experiences.
Absolutely. We'll go to Marg down the end. She wants it.
Hogging the mic. I'm going to opt for the right to make choices because I think that's a really powerful one, because quite often you ask people about what do you fear about going into residential care, and not necessarily with home care because you're living at home, so it's still your house, but moving into residential care, one of the things they're worried about is that they're just going to sit in a room and everyone's going to tell them what to do. And there is a real fear that they'll lose their choices. And I think the choice comes up a number of times in the rights listing there in very different ways. But I think if we still empower people and reassure them, no, you're still going to have a say in what happens to you, that is a relief to a lot of people. And if they know that there's an organisation that they can ring and to help them to continue to have a say in what happens to them, then that is powerful as well. So not only can I maintain my right to make choices, but I've got someone who can help me, or organisations or my family or my friends. Anyone can be your advocate, and you have the right to have someone to speak for you. That is empowering as well. One of my favourite examples is a little old lady who was 99, living at home, technically blind. What's the term for it? Legally blind. And she was very concerned because the aged care provider was telling her she had to have some repairs done and things like that. She needed a new clothesline because it was all rusty. I think it was as old as her. She had a ramp out the back that didn't have a safety rail, and they were worried she was going to fall off it. She had a dodgy chair that was old. She had dirty carpet. So they were saying, look, fix this stuff up. You've got the money in your package to do it. And she was very worried about it. She thought they were trying to con her. And so she talked to me, and I had a word with the manager of the aged care provider, and they said, oh, no, we're worried about her safety. So I convinced the lady that they weren't trying to con her, that she should get something done. So I rang her back a couple of weeks later. I said, what did you get done? She said, oh, I got a new chair. It's really good, and I feel really comfortable now. I didn't get the carpets done because I can't see them anyhow, so it doesn't matter. And I said, what about your clothesline? And she said, no, I didn't worry about my clothesline because I got a safety rail on my ramp and I can fit all my undies down the safety rail. So that's choice, that's decision making. She had the right to check, she had the right to make the choices that she wanted and the right to live the way she wanted. So good on her.
Yeah, I agree. Good on her. Yeah, Maria. Favourite ride?
She's
You've already done yours. Yes. Absolutely. Sorry, love.
Yeah.
Tractor chasing and double dipping.
So for mine is number 11 that Marg touched on, which is around the right to have someone of your choice stand up for you, and that's the right to actually not have someone stand up for you as well, that you can stand up for yourself. But we fought pretty hard to actually get the words aged care advocate in there, so that it actually showed that it could be someone who's professionally doing it, it could be a family member, but don't always assume that it has to be a family member.
Yeah.
It could be the friend down the street, it could be whoever you want. It's your choice.
Absolutely.
But the other one for me that's really important is number 3. So right number 3 talks about the right to have your culture, your background and your identity respected, and actually more than respected, actually celebrated.
Yeah.
Because we all come to life with a lived experience, and that might be lived experience of the partner that you're with, it might be lived experience of the country that you've come from, it might be the language you speak, and that needs to be celebrated.
Absolutely.
And just because you're coming into aged care or receiving aged care services doesn't mean you check that person that you are at the door. it means that you actually should be actually brought in and celebrated. And again, what a great opportunity to start having conversations and learning about people, about there's this group called Mindful Living, I think, and they talk about the 10 things that you don't know about me.
Yeah.
And it's a really lovely way to sit down and go, you don't know this. Did you not know this about me? I'll check it again, it's Mindful Living, but I will double check. I might not have that quite right. But it's some beautiful resources about, well, what do we want to... Well, we want people to know us.
Yeah.
And here's a lovely way to actually ask that. These rights help support that as well.
Oh, absolutely. They really bring it to the floor. And I think also the beauty that you may have been in aged care with similar carers for, say, 5 years. You sit down and start to open and unpack some of this, 10 things you don't know about me, and you find this wonderful kaleidoscope of life that you can share together. And I think that really brings that bond as well into the residential aged care, provides rapport, trust. I think, great conversation. I'm going to go back out to you guys. So, a favourite right? Has anyone got one? I'd love to hear your stories and anything at all. I saw you two chatting before. Have you got one? No?
We're going to make you work in a minute, so you're going to...
Lovely, the beautiful lady in the blue.
We're just going to get you the mic. We're just going to get you the microphone so we can capture you speaking as well.
I like number 4, live without abuse and neglect. I think that covers quite a lot. I was also thinking of number 7, but I've chosen number 4.
Yeah, and it's difficult to choose, isn't it? Because they kind of interweave with each other.
That's right. But if I'm not abused and I'm not neglected,
yeah.
I feel that covers a lot of stuff. I've been heard.
And it's really interesting that we're in a time of there's a Royal Commission going on into aged care, and we know that often it's not intentional, and that's that thing of neglect. We've forgotten the person, so we really want to make sure this is I suppose an opportunity for the aged care sector to say no, we're going to continue to make change, and we're going to continue to respect, and we're going to make sure people live free of neglect during that time.
Mm. Yes, the lovely lady here.
Number 14, the exercise my rights without it adversely affecting the way I'm treated. So the ability to actually speak up and make the choice, stand up for yourself and not feel that you're going to have some retaliation.
Absolutely, and you can have that and show that and it can be very clear. Thank you, that's really great. I've got some more. Yep. This is fantastic.
Lovely. I think all of this, you can't really, as you mentioned, we can't really choose any of these. It's very difficult. But for me...
Can you stand up? Sorry, I can't quite see you. Hello.
Sorry, hi, I'm Najila.
Hi, thank you.
For me, I think number 10 would be very essential, be listened to and understood.
Yeah,
it's one of mine. Because that gives them the opportunity to talk, and unfortunately in facilities, staff don't have time to talk to them. And I think it's wonderful to have standards and I think aged care right to mix them and implement them. But I think in addition to that, we need to have some policies and possibly government intervention to reduce the ratio between the staff, nursing staff, and also residents. Then we can implement all of this. We can listen to them, we can be advocates, but just having them on the paper doesn't necessarily mean that it's happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, in Albury the other day, a gentleman raised the issue. He said, we're talking about all this stuff, but really it comes down to money, doesn't it? We need more funding so that we can provide the staff and provide the facilities, and you're dead right, we really are asking for more staff and better trained staff, and that involves money. And it does come down to money, doesn't it?
I'm just hoping that having these rights actually providing the voice gets more voices, gets the snowball going, and then we get that funding. I've got a gentleman here.
Hi.
Hi.
I look after the seniors who are between 65 to 95, and I feel that many of them, they come here from overseas to live with their children.
Yes.
Children came here to study, got permanent residence, and then the parents probably retired or just even left the job, and they came to join their children because they used to live in extended families. And to me, number 6, the access of all information. They are educated people. Most of them are educated,
Yes.
but they are scared.
Yes.
They are nervous. And they need to know what's happening here, how is it different from their older culture, because they are living in extended families and more or less they've been told what to do, what not to do, it's coming from above downwards. And in our situation, this is very, very important, and I think I've been working on this, that when they come, tell them how this place is different, very democratic, and you are in a very lucky country. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it is so important that we get that information and understand there is fear when you're newly come to a new land, and it can be very difficult. So thank you for that, and also for the support that you do for the seniors.
And we had one of our webinars where we talked around, we had the chair of the diversity subcommittee of the aged care sector committee. Mouthful. Yeah, Samantha Edwards, and she's very passionate about making sure that diversity is respected and that it's actually built into services. And when she started that journey, she told me that there was a big fight with providers, and they said, we treat everyone the same. And we said, that's where you've missed the point, because what 2 of us are the same, and you need to treat us all uniquely and respect the diversity and where I've come from and that sort of thing. So it more and more will happen, and it's great that the government came out with some action plans to say, this is how we'll actually do this, and we will ask providers to work on that over time.
Yeah, there's a gentleman
just over here, and then I think this lady here had a question as well.
Thanks, Tom.
Good morning. Can you see item 6, the access all my information and my care and services? Can you see that having an impact on, if I say legislative changes? For instance, when my mother went into aged care and I was there for the 2 hours signing the forms and going through the whole process, we signed a lot of medical related forms. My mother, I received on her behalf the resident accommodation agreement, and that was fine. But things that have now come up and been highlighted, and even the auditors have been there and they've found things that they looked for, because I've been in touch with the Safety Auditing Commission. It would have been great if I had received copies of all the medical related forms and documents that she signed, but because I don't have an active power of attorney medical, that just gets tucked away. And when my mother received a flu vaccination that she shouldn't have, and I sort of started asking questions, it turned out my mother signed the form, but she didn't know to circle the yes I do, no I don't, and nobody checked it. Doctor didn't check it. So getting to the point, I see this having an impact, but we need to go further, and I'm pushing for advocates, which I am for my mother, getting copies of her documentation. It's fine to have the 44-page resident agreement and spelling mistake here and this is upside down and all that, but hey, my mother received a flu vac that she shouldn't have. 2 days, they did a visual on her. So this is where I see ramifications, and I'm just highlighting it, that it's up to us to push this and really probe and say, well, this is a charter, but how can it be enacted practically of benefit to us? Thanks very much.
Yeah, Mum.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're looking to the Royal Commission for, we're hopeful that these sorts of things will be identified, and you're not the first and you won't be the last who has raised this issue. And what we're hoping from the Royal Commission is that there will be a strengthening of rights of older people, and it will be put into the legislation. If you've ever read the Aged Care Act, if you've got a spare week, do so. about 80% of it is how to set up an aged care service, and about 20% is about, the rights of the older people and how the services are to be provided. And we'd like to see that, change a bit and tightened. And I know it's something our legal team has put to the Aged Care Royal Commission, that we do tighten the legislation, and they have made recommendations. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
Thanks, Mark. There was another question. Yes, just here.
Hi, I'm Darshini, and
Hi,
my
Darshini.
favourite would be number 2, to be treated with dignity and respect. What's interesting, it's actually a toss-up between that and also the quality care and services as well, because I think those 1 and 2 are really critical and really important. But the thing that I'm while I like the charter, what I'm not seeing here and what I encounter daily as sort of community seeking help with is around the time frames. Mm-hmm. While it's great to see this enshrined in the charter about being able to expect or have a right to safe and high quality services and care. With my aged care, whether that's home care packages or CHSP type support, there's so much waiting that you almost lose dignity.
Yes.
And so those two doesn't mention timeframes or timely response, because I think that really is critical for a lot of people who are waiting to access that and not quite knowing why they're having to wait when it's something that they've been told they can have.
And sometimes those waiting times, the person requires a great deal more care by the time they get the package. So it's reassessment time, and I hear you, Back to money again, back to us being a very loud voice and trying to get out there. Maria, you've got no...
I was just going to say, and that's definitely something we've raised with the Royal Commission.
Yes.
And I think nearly every single person that's appeared at the Royal Commission has talked about the unacceptable waiting times, that 2 years is way too long. Yeah.
Yeah, gosh.
We're pushing for 3 months. Yeah.
This is great, guys. Thank you.
Of course, the second and the fourth, to get dignity and respect and live without abuse and neglect. Really, if we really need to get these, it's not easy. The aged care providers, the staff, needs continuous training, continuous support, and as well control. So that, because most of the problems comes from the people who care for the directly nursing or whatever.
Yes. Thank you, and I really hear you on that. Maria, you've got something to say.
Thank you. That was really well said. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. And I think people, the big question I get asked is, well, why have we got this piece of paper, this Charter of Rights? It's another piece of paper. I guess if you look at you're building a house, you need a framework, you need somewhere to start. This is certainly the start of something, and it's going to be everybody's responsibility to be a voice and to enable this to happen. So we're completely on the same page. Thank you.
Are there any more? No? Okay. So we have here Lila. Lila's from Westmont in Wodonga. It's a large residential aged care facility that has, I guess, what's the continual flow into higher care from just independent living. She's reading our rights out, and we had a great day of discussion there. I'll take it over to Lila.
All information about myself, including information about my rights, care and services. I have the right to control over and make choices about my care and personal and social life, including where the choices involve personal risk. I have the right to control over and make decisions about the personal aspects of my daily life, financial affairs and possessions. I have the right to my independence, like that. I have to be listened to and understood. I have the right to have a person of my choice, including an aged care advocate, support me or speak on my behalf. I have the right to complain free from reprisal and have my complaints dealt with fairly and promptly. I have the right to personal privacy and to have my personal information protected. I have the right to exercise my rights without adversely affecting the way I am treated.
The provider has to, by law, sign for it. They have to tell you about your rights or provide information about your rights in a manner that you can understand.
So I think Lila does it very, very well, and we're trying to capture as many voices across Australia of older Australians discussing their rights. So within either your aged care facility or within your home, and you would like to have a voice, please record yourself, record your consent first and foremost, and we're actually creating a collage of elder voices across Australia. So please, if you're interested, you can send it to enquiries@opan.com.au. Excellent. We're now talking about consumer responsibilities, and with my right also comes your right, and I need to respect each other's rights. It's not just one shoe fits all. So they're quite important, aren't they, guys? So we might watch the video first and have a little discussion about consumer responsibilities. And we really love the characters in this particular.
So, what's next? While you have these rights, you must respect the rights of others in the aged care community too. Everyone should feel safe and respected. And you may need to consider any existing care agreements previously made with your provider. Shortly, your provider will give you a copy of the Charter of Aged Care Rights. All Australian government-funded aged care providers have an obligation to explain these rights to you in a way that you understand. We recommend sharing the Charter with your family, friends, or anyone helping you with your care. This can be a great opportunity for you to discuss what's important to you. Discussing your rights and needs better enables those around you to help deliver the best care possible.
Yeah. So, like the video suggests, it's all about, again, about having communication and acknowledging, yes, these are my rights, this is how I want to drive my aged care, but also that community that you live in and respecting each other in that community. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
I think the video there just talked a little bit about what the next steps are and what happens, and that the responsibility is on the aged care provider to explain this to people, to take the time and explain it, and to take that over a number of different stages, as it might be, and to allow... we're moving into signing charter. To explain that to people and to actually take time to do it. And that's a different thing that we haven't really had before. So we have had, the charters have been there were 4 charters, and it depended where you got your aged care or that sort of thing about what you got and which charter you got. This is now actually saying we've got one charter, it all starts on 1 July, and you've got the same rights whether you're receiving care at home, but there's a responsibility on the aged care provider to sit down and explain those things to you. So that's a really good thing, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard that there has been some reluctance from some people to sign the charter, and I suppose there's a bit of a suspicion it's another bit of paper and we talked about, reams of paperwork earlier, but certainly we do encourage you to sign it, because if you're sitting down and talking to your care provider and you're virtually saying, look, I've got your number, you've just agreed to all of this with me, and so it is that more personal involvement, isn't it? I was helping a blind chap look at his agreement recently, and he said, oh, I'm not going to sign all this. Look at all this stuff, look at all these rights that they've got. And I said to him, mate, they're your rights. And he went, oh, that's different then, I'll sign it. So, it's really important that, you and your aged care provider are actually on the same page, and you've talked about it. And that's why we encourage you to sign it as an aged care recipient.
Mm. With the charter coming out, this is actually a perfect time for everybody to really have a voice and get involved. I'm on a particular advisory committee, and the organisation's going, well, how are we going to do this? What can we do? So you might find within your networks, within the facilities or service providers, this might be a time for you to just put your hand up and say, and be part of that voice, because everything that's come up here today is really important. So,
absolutely. And I think it needs time. It's not just something like here you mentioned when you come into aged care, you have 2 hours sitting down doing the agreements and all that. It's huge, it's massive. And I think the charter itself needs time to sit down, think about what your rights is, or are, and how you want to drive your aged care. It's not just something tick box, it's definitely not a tick box. So even if you have the conversation now, then we come back to it again, and particularly if you have cognitive impairments, choose a time that is appropriate. Your cognitive impairment may not be all day, it may be great, you may be fine in the morning, have the conversation then, not in the afternoon. And have reinforcements and conversations over and over again about, what is my right today? Or, what do you think about this, Marg? What do you think about this, Maria? Constantly having that conversation. It's not a tick box here, let's put it in the drawer, it's done. It's not that.
So people will see that this is a copy of the template. Mm-hmm. It's the government template for it. People have asked me, can we put our own logo on there? And yes, you can. What's important though is that the signing part, we might move to the signy bit down the bottom,
there we go.
That's still on there, and that the 14 rights are actually there, and they're not added to and they're not taken away from. So some people have sort of said, oh, look, can we just slip our little bit in there, which is about you got to pay your bills and you got to pay them by the 15th of the month. And it's like, well, come on. Older people have been paying bills all their lives. Mm-hmm. They know how to pay a bill. Now, if you want to sort of set the expectations of when they're due, that can happen in a separate document, but it doesn't happen in the rights. And so you can't add to them, you can't take them away, but you can do other things like might be an explainer document or a frequently asked questions or something like that. So providers can do that, but we're saying don't add or subtract to them, because those 14 are the 14.
Charter is the charter.
The charter is the charter.
Absolutely. Excellent. Now you can see that there are 2 areas here to sign. The provider must sign, must give the information to the consumer in a clear and understandable way. And the consumer, as Mark said, is invited to sign and encouraged to sign, but to think about their rights. Yeah? Okay. When we look at the signing process, it's probably the most texts and information that we've had. Again, it's to take time, but we can post it if you're remote. We can have web conversations. What was some other novel? Definitely telephone.
Call up OPAN and ask us about it. You can ask about your rights.
Yeah. All
the other one that's come up is around who can sign it. So on behalf of the consumer. This one, other side, representative. Yeah, so there's one there about there's the provider signing, and anyone in the provider can sit down and do the education. It doesn't have to be a particular level, as long as the organisation has given them enough training to understand what this means, so that you can sit down and you could unpack each of these 14 for someone. So if someone said, I don't understand what you mean by independence, tell me about that. So number 9. But then when it comes to signing by the older person, they can sign it themselves. And if they've got an authorised representative or an enduring power of attorney or guardian, they should sign it as well, or be given the opportunity to sign it as well. So we think it's important that the older person themselves always gets an opportunity to sign it, even if there's dementia or cognitive impairment, so that it's explained to them, because they might understand certain aspects of it, and that there is then the opportunity for other people to sign as well.
Is there a question? Yes.
But some of the older people, they have a big language problem.
Yes.
They can't understand English, so it's very hard for them, to get the interpreter at that time, just to sign the paper.
Yeah, so these explainer videos, we're getting them translated into some different languages. They won't necessarily be in every language. This booklet's going to be translated,
18.
and the charter itself is going to be translated into 18 languages. So there will be some things out there, but yeah, I think that's really important, that it's to be listened to and understood, number 10, but that means to be understood and explain things in your own language as well. There are telephone interpreter services that can help you with accessing advocates as well, but that needs to be helped and facilitated.
Yes.
It's not a bad idea to revisit. So there's been some discussion about how it gets implemented in home care and that annual review process, or CHSP, the annual visit. You could take that opportunity. There's no reason why you couldn't do a refresh once a year to just say, hey, we're looking at updating our fees maybe, and why don't we re-look at the charter and just reinforce to you that we're going to stand by. So I think this is the good thing for providers as well. They can say, we're going to help you stand up for your rights, and we're going to stand by these as well. There's no legal obligation. Only the legal obligation is to sign it in the first place, but great idea.
Yes.
Yeah, so the question there, for those who couldn't hear it, is about cognitive impairment and what we're hearing from providers as we do these events. I will go to both my counterparts here as well, but I would say that we're really pushing a process called supported decision making, and respecting that everyone has the right to understand their rights, even if they have got cognitive impairments. So we're encouraging providers that might have to be done in a different way and at different times and at a slower pace, and it might have to be repeated or done at different times of the day. Take that opportunity. That keeps that person empowered and in control of their life, which is key to this. It does take longer.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge, but it's no reason why in each interaction you can't reinforce one of the different rights each time.
And I think that comes back to providers providing in the environment as well, and understanding dementia or cognitive changes, that we need to provide an environment that encourages the improvement, or at least the attainment at times, if that makes sense. The space that they're living in, the noises as well. We all know that lack of sleep, lack of nutrition and noise all really create much more, delirium, etc. Yeah.
Really great question. It's an area I'm very passionate about. I'm hearing all sorts of different conversations from organisations, but I think a common thought is that it is still very vital that someone with cognitive impairment has that opportunity. My father had dementia, and I know that it would need to be done with a person of trust.
Yes.
Very much so, a person that he got to know on a daily basis, not a stranger coming into his room that he'd never seen. So it's really important.
And also, I think you've got to look at that person's legal representative as well, because the older person doesn't lose their rights just because they have dementia. And so if they have a legal representative, then the rights that legal representative then has the obligation to protect the rights of the person that they are the representative of. So it's very inclusive, isn't it? Everyone who's involved with that older person needs to know that that older person has rights.
Yes, I just have a comment. In relation to publications available through Health Department in different languages, I think there are restrictions in terms of the number of the languages that publications are being translated into.
Mm-hmm. So I believe it's 18 they're coming into.
Yeah. Yes, we have different clients from different backgrounds, but we have a strong ties with Persian community, for instance, in Australia, and we have asked Health Department for last, I would say, 2 to 3 years for information to be translated, but never happens. And it makes it very difficult to raise these issues within the community, especially if they're from different
Sure, and I think
background.
I have to say that Seniors' Rights Service, I think, are really good at looking at cultural diversity, and they have a number of resources translated. But we can chat after we finish here just about contacts and those sorts of things, because we're always looking to expand that sort of work. And if there's a missing piece there, we're happy to take that up to government as well.
Absolutely. I think there's another question.
Yeah, just wondering, if somebody's under the New South Wales Trustee and Guardian, is the form sent to the public guardian or the public trustee? And are New South Wales Trustee and Guardian aware of this?
Good question.
Are they aware?
Yeah. It's a good question.
Yeah. There is a number of issues with that at the moment, because they're no longer under single guardians or trustees. It's just like a group who looks up the computer at the time. So, but it's beholden on all of us to make sure that the trustees and guardians are aware of this, and we do have interaction with them. So I'll take that back to work and say, make sure that they are fully aware of this and their obligations to make sure that they... Which... Guardian or the trustee to sign? I would say guardian.
Guardian?
Yeah, because guardian makes
More
decisions about
interactive,
accommodation. So, yep. And but good luck with getting it signed.
Again, there is another area that needs to be reviewed, etc. So yeah, okay. Thank you. They're all wonderful questions. I'm really loving it. Thanks, guys.
Your provider will have already signed the Charter, showing that they understand your rights. If you're comfortable doing so, we recommend you sign the Charter too. By signing, you're showing to your provider that you also understand and recognise your rights. If you're not comfortable signing, or you have concerns about your rights not being upheld, talk to your aged care provider, family, friend or carer. Don't worry, your services will not be affected if you choose not to sign the Charter. If you'd prefer to talk to an independent representative, contact OPAN, the Older Persons Advocacy Network, on 1800 700 600, or visit their website at opan.com.au. Alternatively, you can ask for more information, give feedback or raise a complaint about your services with the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission by calling 1800 951 822 or by visiting agedcarequality.gov.au. The Charter of Aged Care Rights, proudly shared by OPAN, the Older Persons Advocacy Network and quality aged care providers across Australia.
Excellent. But we might play the whole video perhaps after we're finished, so you can watch it through if you'd like while you're having another scone. You've got to leave one for me though. All right, the time frames for implementation. So we have new recipients of aged care absolutely on the 1st of July. Current residential aged care recipients, we have until the 30th of September. So we have time to sit down and have the conversation and looking at the new Charter of Aged Care Rights. When it comes to home care packages, given the, I guess, lack of visitors, visiting times, etc., we have a little bit of extension, 31st of December. Now, when it comes to community support packages...
So the CHSP work is still being underway. On all of these, we're suggesting that providers start the conversation early. So don't wait until the 28th or 29th of whatever month it is that it ticks over to do this, to start the conversations. But there is some recognition out there that there's lots of people on CHSP and they might not be connected as readily to this. But the plan is to still get information out to people and still start that conversation. And again, if anyone's on CHSP and they want to ask anything about this, ring 1800 700 600 and we'll step you through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Maria, you're nodding and shaking there. Is there anything that you want to add?
I guess in my very part-time role, I think, anybody that's on a Commonwealth Home Support Program, I've had lots and lots of conversations over the last few weeks, and the Charter has probably highlighted those conversations, and although I can't solve all the issues for everybody, like we all know today, I've been able to help people with simple questions and direct them to other organisations that can help. So sometimes I think it's thinking outside the box, very much so. But don't be afraid to think about your own community. You might be able to offer a number for someone like the RSPCA volunteer group to look after somebody's dog while they have to go in and have surgery, or direct people like Marg and other organisations. So, and that only takes a couple of minutes to your time. So, yeah.
Beautiful, thank you. All right. So we're just looking at some resources and thinking of some novel ways that you can sit down and have this conversation. So of course there is important part is to actually sit down. Make that time to sit down, have a cup of tea, have the conversation, get to know the resident or the consumer of aged care. Share, chat, learn. I've had some, over this last month, some amazing opportunities. Watch the explainer video. This video is available to you on the OPAN web site, so opan.com/charter, and it's there to utilise whether you have it in a group session or one-on-one, you watch it again and again, it's there for you. Please use it. We love it, we're a bit biased. There are also community events such as this, so thank you again for coming in and joining in and having a voice. But also we have videoed many webinars that we've had, both workforce and consumer orientated, and they provide a great deal of information, similar structure and framework of chat, but different panellists and different perspectives, and also different input from the audience or Q&A. And then there's also, ta-da, the booklet. Okay. At the present moment, these are hot off the press like last night. They don't have OPAN on the back. They will shortly, and it is the 1800 700 600 number. So please contact if there's any concerns or you have any questions, queries, or anything at all. How do you say that?
Good question. Posters and these booklets are available on the Department of Health's website under their aged care section for download at the moment. They are looking at options for printing and ordering, so that's still in the process. It's coming. We'll put a notice up on our website once they're available, and I'm sure the Department of Health will as well, and put out through their normal communications. So you will get glossier versions coming soon, and posters will be available as well. The other plug I'm going to give is that we've hopefully got some posters coming out about advocacy that are coming out to facilities as well that will be delivered through the Department of Health, and I'd encourage you to put those up. There's also, if for staff in direct care staff, we've got some training on the OPAN website called the Talk to Us First. And Talk to Us First is about a 15-minute, really short video session which explains what the role of an advocate is and about the difference it can make and what difference it can make to resolving issues early if you bring in an advocate. So for those working in aged care, I'd really encourage you to go and have a look at that. Take 15 minutes to sit down and have a cuppa that you well deserve and look through the Talk to Us First training.
Okay, we've got another question. Thanks.
Sorry to ask this question, but can we include your videos in our website just as one of the resources to...
Absolutely. So we can send around the links to that. We'll probably link it back to our website because there's going to be a whole suite of things there, but you absolutely can link back to that and encourage people. We want people to share these videos as much as possible, to have them on their websites, to get their staff to do this training. We've got another webinar on tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely.
At 10 a.m. tomorrow morning for staff in aged care. So if anyone wants the details of that for their staff, we can put that up. It will be recorded.
Yes, absolutely. And there's an opportunity for Q&A, so if you want to be anonymous, you can text in and I can get your question and I can read it out on the webinar. Yes? Yeah, just 1 second. Yeah.
Yep. Can I ask about younger people in aged care? There's quite a lot of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s in aged care. So what's the advocacy available for them?
Same. No? There is.
Yeah, if they're in residential care, which most are, because otherwise they're usually under the NDIS now, aren't they, if they're at home, then their eligibility for advocacy services is exactly the same as an older person because the criteria is just being someone receiving aged care services. Obviously the needs are different. And that's what we're finding is quite often, from an advocacy point of view, it's very hard to meet the needs of younger people in residential aged care because they actually need outside services, which we don't connect to because it's outside our brief. So that is the issue. But from an advocate's point of view, it doesn't matter your age. If you are receiving aged care services, we will support you.
Then perhaps it could be clarified in the brochure for the Senior Rights Service to be a bit clearer that is the case. Yeah.
So look at that. The other thing is that for those younger people, there are a number of organisations, and apologies that I don't know them off by heart, but I remember being at the round table with Minister Wyatt when we were talking about the terms of reference for the Royal Commission, and it was amazing. It was an eye opener for me about how many advocacy organisations are out there championing that thing, and I think that will be a big thing in the Royal Commission. So that's the systemic level. At the individual level, there's those specific organisations, and there's also Seniors' Rights Service. Yeah. Exactly. So the comment there was it's easy in metro areas. It's kind of like our services as well. We've got 60 advocates across the country, but that stretches only so far. So it's really hard for people who are living in rural and regional areas. And Tangalooma, Albury, those sorts of things.
Wear your rural voice, don't you worry, we're trying. Yeah, we just have to become quite innovative, I think. And it's not always the NBN.
So more advocacy, more advocates, more rural and remote approaches, absolutely.
Absolutely. Are there any more questions this morning? You've been just fantastic. I really loved your input. It's so important. Yes, sir.
I'll just put a plug in for COTA because I'm a member
Please
of
do.
COTA.
Excellent.
Not a plug as such, but I only knew about OPAN last week when I got the latest magazine, and I missed the Melbourne Victorian one, so, I came here. So all I'm saying is it's a lot to learn, and with my mother in care, as we're all finding, God, where do you start?
Yes.
And information comes at a serendipitous moment, and there I am looking. So every little bit helps. Thank you if you're putting adverts in COTA, and COTA, of course, putting space available. So
Yeah, so we were lucky to get in one quota, and thanks to Corey and to Ian Yates for getting us in there. And CODA does some amazing work, and really at that systemic and lobbying and trying to change the system. And it's because it's got thousands of members that help it do that. Yeah. And another plug is there's a thing called the Aged Care Navigators Trial that's on at the moment. It's not everywhere, it's in certain locations, but CODA's leading that. And that's about saying sometimes people need, again, someone to walk alongside them to help explain and even navigate into the aged care system. Yep. So even that front door part to get us registered on My Aged Care can be really, really challenging. And not everyone's a member of CODA. So the Navigators Trial, if you hear about it, support it. It's really important. It's trying to get information out there about how to get into aged care.
All I can say is call us. You know, if you've got a question, if we can't answer it, if you're talking to me, I'll make up an answer and send you away. But the other advocates will be really nice and actually answer your questions. But the idea is, if we can't help you, we will try and send you to someone who can and refer you on. So really think of advocacy services in terms of, we're there to help you. Start us with a conversation. Yeah. If we can help you, we will. If we can't, we'll try and find someone who can.
Yeah, help you through that maze. Excellent. That brings us to the conclusion today. I'd really, really like to thank you again for your time, participation. That's just fantastic. And also to this amazing panel. Thank you all very much for your input and time. Again, very precious. And for your laughter, Marg. It's always a bonus. Thank you very much. Just a plug as well. August the 7th is Aged Care Employee Day for any of those in Widden. Is there any...
Widden started the day.
Yes, Widden started the day. So
but
it is
propagating
aged care.
across the country, recognition of our aged care workforce. So August 7th.
Yeah, beautiful. Please, there's a lot more scones and things left, and we'll possibly put on the video. Is that possible, Trav? Yeah, to watch it through? Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
From the 1st of July 2019, the Australian Government is introducing a new and simpler Charter of Aged Care Rights for anyone receiving aged care services. As a person receiving aged care, you have the same legal rights as all Australians. The Charter of Aged Care Rights add to these and are designed to help you by putting the focus on you, giving you choice and making sure you are treated with respect. This video aims to help you understand these rights and how you can exercise them. We'll go through them briefly now. However, you'll also receive a copy on paper and you can always ask for more information afterwards. Here's a quick look at all 14 of them. You have the right to safe and high-quality care and services. You have the right to be treated with dignity and respect. You have the right to have your identity, culture and diversity valued and supported. You have the right to live without abuse and neglect. You have the right to be informed about your care and services in a way you understand. And you have the right to have access to information about yourself, including information about your rights, care and services. You have the right to have control over and make choices about your care, personal and social life, including where choices involve personal risk. You have the right to have control over and to make decisions about the personal aspects of your daily life, financial affairs and possessions. You have the right to your independence. You have the right to be listened to and understood. You have the right to have a person of your choice, including an aged care advocate, support you or speak on your behalf. You have the right to complain, free from reprisal, and to have your complaints dealt with fairly and promptly. You have the right to personal privacy and to have your personal information protected. And finally, you have the right to exercise your rights without it adversely affecting the way you are treated. So, what's next? While you have these rights, you must respect the rights of others in the aged care community too. Everyone should feel safe and respected. And you may need to consider any existing care agreements previously made with your provider. Shortly, your provider will give you a copy of the Charter of Aged Care Rights. All Australian government-funded aged care providers have an obligation to explain these rights to you in a way that you understand. We recommend sharing the Charter with your family, friends, or anyone helping you with your care. This can be a great opportunity for you to discuss what's important to you. Discussing your rights and needs better enables those around you to help deliver the best care possible. Your provider will have already signed the Charter, showing that they understand your rights. If you're comfortable doing so, we recommend you sign the Charter too. By signing, you're showing to your provider that you also understand and recognise your rights. If you're not comfortable signing or you have concerns about your rights not being upheld, talk to your aged care provider, family, friend or carer. Don't worry, your services will not be affected if you choose not to sign the Charter. If you'd prefer to talk to an independent representative, contact OPAN, the Older Persons Advocacy Network, on 1800 700 600, or visit their website at opan.com.au. Alternatively, you can ask for more information, give feedback or raise a complaint about your services with the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission by calling 1800 951 822 or by visiting agedcarequality.gov.au. The Charter of Aged Care Rights, proudly shared by OPAN, the Older Persons Advocacy Network and quality aged care providers across Australia.